So the iPad Air just got a bump up to the M3 chip. This is an upgrade from the M2 chip that it got in its refresh last year in May of 2024, and that's a pretty significant bump. Hey everyone, Tech Dad here, and if you've seen my content before, you know that I use my iPad Pro for everything that I do in work and in my leisure activities. So I use it for two different jobs. I use it for project management and I use it for teaching. I mean, read the cup, folks. The cup says it all. And the iPad Pro offers those pro level features. I mean, it offers Stage Manager, it has secondary display support, and of course it has the top-end hardware in it like the M4 chip. But some folks on my channel are asking the question, hey, can't you do all of this stuff on the iPad Air, especially now that it has the M3 chip? Isn't it going to be pretty darn comparable to the Pro? And the iPad Air is a heck of a lot cheaper. So that's what I want to explore today. I want to see, what do you get for the cheaper price point of the iPad Air? And what are you missing out on? All right, so let's jump into it. Okay, so first, let's talk about the price differences between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, because they are pretty darn significant. So if you look at the iPad Pro, just the base model that's 11 inches, it's $999 for that. Compared to the iPad Air 11 inch is $599, so we're talking $400 here. Now you should note that the base iPad Air is half the storage space, so 128 gigs for $599. So if you compare apples to apples and you look at the 256 version of the iPad Air, it's $699, so we're looking at a $300 price point difference. Now, I wanted to replace my laptop computer, so I wanted a larger screen size than 11 inches. So I went with the 13-inch iPad Pro, which is $1299. And if you compare that to the 256 gigabyte version of the iPad Air, that version is $899. So it is a $400 price point difference for the exact same screen size and the exact same storage. $400 is a lot of money to just about anybody. Or a $300 price point difference for the 11-inch sizes. So what in the world are you getting for the Pro that costs this much more money? Well, we're going to get to that in just a second. Let's talk about what you're getting that's good and what you get at this price point with that iPad Air. So the first thing you're getting that's at least comparable to the base model iPad Pro is in the iPad Air, you get that M3 chip now, and that is a computer grade processing chip. And you can check out the specs of that chip on Apple's website. So you're getting an 8-core CPU with 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores and a 9-core GPU. So you're getting a really good processor in this iPad Air. You're also getting 8 gigs of RAM, which is what the iPad Pro base version has. They both have 8 gigs of RAM. And that's what I've been using, and we'll talk about how well that works for me. With this chip, you also get Apple Intelligence support, which I think is a really big deal. I know not a lot of folks are using it yet, and it's pretty basic so far, but I think it's going to get better and better as AI advances. You also get support for the Apple Pencil Pro. Now, the Apple Pencil Pro is more expensive, but it has a lot more pro level features, such as the tap gestures that are built into it, and you can sync and charge your pencil just by magnetizing it to the top of your iPad, and that goes for the iPad Air or the Pro. With this chip, you also get Stage Manager and you get support for a secondary display, so it seems like at first glance that the iPad Air is going to do a lot of computer-like functionality that the iPad Pro can also do. So where are the shortcomings here? Where are we coming up with that extra $400 for that iPad Pro? Well, let's talk about what you're missing out on when you go with the Air. So the first major hardware difference between the Pro and the Air is the display. And so in the iPad Pro, you've got that tandem OLED display. And when you have a device like an iPad, the display is everything. And once you go to a top-end display, it's very difficult to go backwards. So the OLED display has twice the brightness capability as the iPad Air, so it's going to look crisp and clean. Even if you're outside, it's going to have less glare. Especially if you go with the nano texture glass upgrade, it has even less reflection and less glare. The iPad Air does not offer that upgrade. The OLED display also offers a 120 Hz refresh rate as compared to 60 Hz refresh on the iPad Air. Apple's website calls this ProMotion technology, and having double the refresh rate just makes for a smoother experience when you scroll or interact with the screen in any way. It has a much more responsive screen because it is refreshing at twice the speed. So when I say that the Pro display is pro level, it is awesome. Everything looks great on it, content looks great on it, and just interacting with the screen is amazing. You may not notice that if you've never had an iPad Pro with this good of a display, and a lot of non-pro level users users just won't notice the difference. Now, something else you're missing out on is the upgrade option. So the more powerful the iPad Pro you get, the better your processor is. The processor gets stronger and stronger with the higher notch iPad Pros. You also get more RAM as you buy more storage space, and this is not an option on the iPad Air. And I'll be honest with you, for video editing, which I do a lot of, obviously, 8 gigs of RAM is kind of pushing it. I certainly wish I would have bought more storage than 256, but the extra RAM would really help when I'm editing all this 4K video, so it works for now, but when I get to my next refresh cycle, I'm definitely buying the higher notch iPad Pro. There's no Face ID in the iPad Air, there's only Touch ID, but I don't think that's really that big of a deal. The speakers are also different. So in the iPad Pro, you have 4 quality speakers built into it. With the iPad Air, you just have the 2. So if you do some gaming and you're not using your headphones, those extra speakers are really nice. Another big thing about the iPad Pro is that it has Thunderbolt connectivity and the iPad Air does not. And this comes back into video editing again that are multiple gigs in size. So I move a lot of really large videos. The other day, I just moved 1/4 of a terabyte of data from one flash drive to an external hard drive using my iPad Pro. It's really nice to have Thunderbolt connectivity. You also get a better connectivity with your display when you have Thunderbolt support. Well, the iPad Air doesn't have this, and so I would be concerned about that. I've not tested it yet, though, and so I intend to pick up an iPad Air soon and do some testing and see if I can notice some real differences. But Thunderbolt 4 connectivity is lightning fast connectivity, and you're going to be able to move those large file sizes much more quickly. Again, that may not be important to you, but to a video editor, it really is. So those are the big differences that I see in the two devices. Again, I want to purchase an iPad Air soon, and I'm going to do some testing. I'm going to take it to work and see how it functions. Maybe you have an iPad Air already with the M3 chip. If you do, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know how you're using this device and how it's working for you. By the way, if you want this cup, it is in my merch store. You can find my store in my YouTube channel description. Any purchases that you all make, I just put it right back into purchasing tech to make good content for you all. So I appreciate anything that you purchase. That's all I got for you today. If you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.